So many questions surrounding the case of classified documents found at Biden's office and in his Delaware home. Last week, the DOJ, as I'm sure you know, appointed a special counsel to look into all these questions. But could an ulterior motive for the appointment have been to crowd out an investigation by a Republican House? Someone who's been looking into all that is Sarah Westwood, Washington Examiner investigative reporter and Steamboat Institute Blankley Fellow. Sarah, we welcome you. Thank you for being here. By the way, we should mention that there are two House investigations that could be looking into all these things. Of course, one is Jim Jordan's Judiciary Committee, and the other is Jim Comer's Oversight Committee. So both of them have kind of jurisdiction in this area. But what about the overall question? Could the special counsel kind of crowd out the investigations of the House committees?
Yeah, if the liberal-leaning leadership at the Justice Department doesn't want some of this information that could be damaging about Biden to get out, they have, you know, the specter of an ongoing investigation to hide behind. That's something that Special Counsel Jack Smith, who's investigating a Trump alleged records violation, has done to the Senate Intelligence Committee, for example. Senate Intelligence Committee Democrats had been pestering the Justice Department for information about what kind of records Trump had in his home. The Justice Department Special Counsel Jack Smith has been stymieing that committee. So it's very possible that Republicans could find it more difficult to get information from the Justice Department about the investigation, although the Justice Department did not have any problem cooperating with congressional investigators when it came to the January 6th committee. They cooperated very well, even though there were dozens of ongoing investigations, but I don't expect that to be the case with this situation.
The politicalization is just extraordinary, how it's overcome the Department of Justice. But there is kind of a precedent for it. It's kind of like the turf battles that sometimes you see at a crime scene where the FBI and the police are arguing that one or the other has the right to be the main investigator. Is there any precedent for who has authority? If the House wants some information that the special counsel is already looking at, could the special counsel say, no, I have first dibs?
As long as that criminal investigation is open, as it is right now, then the Justice Department is supposed to, have the final say on what kind of information should be released. That being said, that would apply a lot more to James Comer's investigation on House oversight. That one of two House Republican investigations is focusing more on the substance of the case. What was in the documents that were found at Joe Biden's residence? Who searched for them? What were their job titles? What were their security clearances? The Jim Jordan investigation is not so much about Biden's actual violation, but how the Justice Department itself handled that. That's not a subject of criminal investigation. That should be straightforward information about the decisions that the FBI made and, who was briefed and when. So the Justice Department could have a tougher time stonewalling Jim Jordan's investigation because it's not about what's at the heart of the ongoing criminal probe.
What about with regard to subpoenas? If one of the or the other, let's say Jim Jordan, because you say he may have an easier time of getting stuff, if he subpoenas somebody that for information that the special counsel wants to talk to first for whatever reason, who gets dibs on that one?
Well, what's interesting is that for years, a congressional subpoena didn't really mean anything. I mean, think about all the congressional subpoenas that went out during the Obama administration for, let's just take one scandal, the IRS bias controversy. The Obama administration just roundly ignored those. But Democrats set a precedent during the January 6th committee investigation that they may not like. Now that the tables are turned, they went to the Justice Department and had that subpoena enforced in court for Steve Bannon, for Mark Meadows. So that is the precedent that's now been set. The Justice Department itself has backed a congressional subpoena saying this is part of the constitutional authority of the Congress to exercise its oversight authority. So Republicans could have that court precedent if they want to try to enforce some of these subpoenas, which may have been ignored before the January 6th probe.
Now, we were just talking to a former FBI agent about the politicalization of the FBI. Congress is going to want to know why the FBI itself wasn't handling these documents from the first moment that the White House informed the archives that they had found secret documents. And of course, that was before the election. Is there any chance that the special counsel and the congressional committees may fight about who has priority there?
Obviously, the FBI and the Justice Department aren't going to want to lift the hood and show the American public how they made the investigative decisions in the Biden probe, but it's going to be really difficult for the Justice Department not to answer these questions because you have the Trump probe as a parallel case study and how a conservative in the same situation might be treated. It's not a hypothetical. You can see the investigative decisions that were made in the Trump probe were far more aggressive than Biden's, and the Justice Department is going to come under a lot of pressure, I think, even at some point from Democrats, to explain the different treatment of these two cases.
And of course, there's also the question of, did the FBI not get involved because they knew that people would see right before an election? Because I think it was November 2nd when the White House informed the archives, which was about a little less than a week before the election. If there had been an FBI investigation at the home of the president, chances are the media would have seen that was something up. Could that have played a role in the FBI holding back and letting private counsels who didn't have security clearance rummage through all these secret documents?
That is, I think, the most important question about this investigation. Why did FBI agents raid the former president's home in Mar-a-Lago, even though Trump's lawyers at the time were actively cooperating with the Justice Department to get the documents back to the National Archives, just like Biden said his team was? But in Biden's case, why they decided to defer to Biden's personal lawyers and allow them to search the home. And after the first two times that it turned out that Biden's private office and residence contained classified information, they didn't suspect that potentially Biden had been careless with classified information, and this might require a third party to investigate. At no point have they searched Biden's residences or private offices, and the question is why that step was deemed necessary for Trump when in both cases lawyers were actively cooperating with the National Archives. Yeah,
too many questions to leave it up just to the special counselor. I'm glad Congress is looking into Sarah Westwood. I'm glad you're looking into it. Thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it. Well,